as one of the top best-ranked institutes doesn't mean the finish line for ITS. To gain greater international recognition, ITS launched International Undergraduate Program. Students can get wider international exposure through 20 study programs they can apply. The chances are also open for professors from all over the world to teach and conduct research at ITS. These opportunities have made international joint research and other international activities successfully performed. Like IUP, students and lecturers from other programs have also contributed to the ITS achievements. Appreciations earned exemplify Institute's excellent performance. But technology and academic excellence is not the only goal of the Institute. Students are guided to apply their knowledge for the welfare of society. Because to note a new life-changing history, technology must advance humanity. ITS, Institute Technology, 10 November.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before we start commence the program, and here are the following webinar protocol. For each participant ID, please use your real name following with your origin of institution. All of participants are expected to mute the audio and only unmute the video during the event. We cordially invite you to take your own firm and comfort seat in your own room, and please avoid the backlight. Make sure that you have a good and stable internet connection. If you have an earphone or headset, we recommend you to use it so that your voice can clearly and loudly to be heard. During the Q&A discussion session, all participants, please use the chat box to deliver the questions. Thank you for your cooperation and consideration.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the guest lecture series on SDGs today, Wednesday, May the 11th, 2022. I am Nabila from ITS Global Engagement, and I will be your Master of Ceremony and moderator for this afternoon. Thank you for joining the guest lecture series on SDG today. Before we start our agenda, allow me to inform you some rules for the event. First, please adjust your name or ID screen into the format name_campus. Second, please turn off your microphone during the lecture session. You can turn on the microphone during the Q&A session. And then the third, please turn on your camera and adjust the seat position comfortably and prevent the backlight. Also, we ask you to ensure your network has a stable internet connection. We will also share attendance link listed in the chat box and also Q&A link in the chat box as well. You can also ask directly later by using the raise hand feature. Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm so glad to welcome you all in this beautiful afternoon at the GLS on SDGs. Today's GLS on SDGs will bring about 2 sustainable development goals, which are goal number 3 about good health and well-being, and also goal number 4 about quality education. I hope all participants can prepare your notes and be ready to grasp insight about the topics. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see in the poster right now, today's session will be divided into 3 sessions. The first will be delivered by Mr. Frank van Zoon from VisiTrack about digitalization of healthcare, the end of the beginning. And then the next session will be delivered by Ms. Opifia Dian about the rise of the telerehabilitation in Indonesia. After that, we will have another session for SDG number 4, entitled Maintaining and Continuing Focus on Engineering Skills Throughout the Life Cycle of Engineering Study at Universities, that will be delivered by Associate Professor Dr. Nidal Jabari from Palestine Technical University. Mr. Frank, Ms. Opifia, and Dr. Nidal, allow me to also become the moderator for today's lecture. Now, allow me to deliver our schedule today as follows. The first, there will be opening remark from ITS Global Engagement. Second, introduction to the speaker. Third, lecture session. Fourth, Q&A session. Fifth, certificate awarding. And lastly, the closing. Now, before we proceed to the main agenda, allow me to invite Associate Professor Maria Anityasari as the Director of ITS Global Engagement to deliver the opening remark. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Maria.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nabila, for a very nice introduction. I would like to say hello and thank you and welcome to all respected speakers. We are very, very grateful having you all in this guest lecture series today. So as mentioned by Ms. Nabila, today we are very happy to have 3 speakers and all of them will talk about very, very important SDGs, I believe. SDGs number 3 and SDGs number 4. So we will have Mr. Frank van Zoon. Very sorry if I not pronounced your name correctly. Nice meeting you. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet us today. And also Ibu Opifia Dian. Ibu, hello Ibu, nice to meet you. And also we will have Associate Professor Nidal Jabari. Hello, how are you?
Hello, thank you so much. I'm happy to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. So today I would like to give a very brief background about our session, especially with VisiTrack, because we work with very closely with a couple universities in Europe in the area of rehabilitation technology, rehabilitation engineering. Last year, we conducted a short program, actually not too short actually, because 4-month program together with FIFES in Belgium, and the program was very successful. And then we also work with YAM University in Finland, and Mr. Karipeka actually introduced us to VisiTrack Indonesia, and we have very successful workshop on the 17th of December. The idea behind, all of us know that health issue become very, very serious concern all over the world. And due to the pandemic, we cannot have face-to-face, on-site and direct rehabilitation. That's why VisiTrack come with the idea of digitalization of rehabilitation. This year, we have very big planning on that. Thanks God, we got support from Finland and also FIFES Belgium. And we would like to run a short program on the area of digital health and telehealth, because we can say telehealth. And we also would like to enhance, because Indonesia is a very big country with more than 17,500 islands. We have rural area as well as remote and very remote areas. I believe the existence of telehealth and digitalization in health rehabilitation become very important. So today, special thanks to Mr. Frank and Ibu Opifia Dian. I really would like to learn from you. I would like to grasp the idea and later on can discuss with you for further collaboration, including global project-based learning and so on. And today we also have our special guest, Professor Nidal Jabari. You are talking about life cycle engineering later on, and it is exactly what we also try to develop here in our university. So all the participants, I really hope that you can learn a lot from today's guest lecture series. Please prepare question and discussion point. And once again, the accomplishment of Sustainable Development Goals only can be achieved if we work together, hand in hand, closer and deeper. So once again, thank you very much. I invite everyone to give a very round applause for our speaker and enjoy the session today. Thank you so much. Back to you, Nabila.
Okay, thank you so much, Ibu Maria, for the warm welcome. I bet that everyone is driven and excited to start today's discussion. So like Bu Maria said, you can prepare your notes and prepare your question because today we will have amazing experts to share about goal number 3 and goal number 4. Okay, now let me introduce the speakers for the first session. Okay, the first session will be delivered by Mr. Frank van Zoon from VisiTrack. Mr. Frank van Zoon is a former physiotherapist who helped grow the digital health startup VisiTrack and now work as the vice president at the VisiTrack Group. Mr. Frank has seen the transition in healthcare in Europe over the past years and is driven to help shape future healthcare ecosystems. As you can see, Mr. Frank is experienced in healthcare, and I hope that all of you can grasp more knowledge he's about to deliver today. So I will welcome Mr. Frank to deliver the lecture. Without further ado, Mr. Frank, the time is yours.
Thank you very much, Nabila, for the kind introduction, and great to be here today and tell you a little bit more about my experience and my background in physiotherapy and the digital healthcare space. So as Nabila already mentioned, I'm a former physiotherapist. I used to work as a physiotherapist, and in the past 7 years, I've been involved with VisiTrack from the startup that it was back in the days to the publicly listed company that it is right now. And I would like to give you some insight in what I experienced over the past 7 or 8 years in terms of digitalization in healthcare. If we talk about digitalization in healthcare, I think it's good to talk about some examples of what digital healthcare, what you might think of. So for example, what we do at VisiTrack is provide practitioners with a platform to assign exercises, education, and programs to patients, let patients actually keep their progress and track their progress inside an app, and keep them close by using telehealth and or chat support to monitor progress and intervene remotely as well. But that's just an example. If you look at digital healthcare, you can also think of, for example, things like virtual reality in healthcare to treat patients with chronic pain injuries. You can think about bigger data platforms to actually guide informed decision-making for practitioners. And with that, I think digital healthcare comprises all the tools, all information and communication technology that might aid health or healthcare in general. If you look at the digitalization in healthcare, the digitalization process, I think you can speak of 3 different phases. So we can talk about digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. And what I've seen is that progressing and evolving over the past years. So for example, if you talk about digitization, then we're specifically talking about the transformation of current processes that are done in hospitals or in clinics, and actually using a digital or technical component to replace that. So for example, the piece of paper that you see in the bottom left, to replace that with a digital exercise program. Same thing applies to, for example, keeping track of your patient record. Instead of actually doing that on paper, doing that in a digital manner. Those are examples of digitization. The next step in the adoption or digital healthcare transformation is digitalization. And that's the ability to actually put specific care processes in a digital code, basically. So for example, to do a consultation via a video session, right, like we are doing right now, for example, I'm currently in the Netherlands. Most of you are based in Indonesia, and I'm able to actually talk with you and present this to you via a video connection. That's one of the examples what you can see in terms of digitalization. And for example, the same thing applies to client engagement to make sure that you can keep track of patients, how they are progressing remotely without actually having to intervene in a manual way. And that's the same, then we go to the next step where we talk about digital transformation, where we are specifically transforming the way we deliver care. For example, what we just heard, the amount of islands that we can see in Indonesia, and by using digital care to make sure that we enable care delivery without actually having to travel to a specific site, to make sure that you talk to the expert who is specialized in the injury or the condition that you have specifically. That's one of the key benefits of actually using digital health, and one of the key transformations that we are trying to actually get to, and slowly but surely actually are getting to. If you look at the opportunities of digital health, I think there are several, but I just wanted to name a few. And one of the few that I wanted to mention is, for example, the ability to increase or improve outcomes with patients, the improved self-efficacy, the ability for patients to actually do more with that, increasing the patient experience, the ability for practitioners to allow more ways of providing care, the ability for patients to actually get access to practitioners in a better way. And of course, if we talk about sustainable development goals, also reducing the carbon footprint, for example. If you go a little bit more deeper into that, I would really like to invite you to look at our website. We have a specific section focusing on clinical studies, but I did want to name a few to actually tell you a little bit more about the effectiveness of using digital health inside the workforce, or inside the workplace, or inside hospital departments or care paths. What you can think of, for example, is that by using digital health and by actually making care more accessible and making sure that patients are more engaged, that we can see improved outcomes. For example, better outcomes in terms of post-surgery rehabilitation, improved outcomes in terms of the speed of recovery, and overall the experience in general. One of the things that we have in there, for example, is virtual physiotherapy. So if we look at the experience in Europe, what we have seen in the UK with Ascenti, a leading provider of physiotherapy and other care-related services, and what they have seen is that virtual physiotherapy in combination with on-site treatment can be the best way to actually reduce pain with specific injuries. And that you see that if you look at online physiotherapy, you already have a good effect. If you see on-site good physiotherapy, it has a better effect. But if you combine the two, that you see a really good effect on the outcomes in specific injury treatments or specific condition rehab programs. Just to name a few examples of what it could be and what it could mean in terms of outcomes. Of course, the patient experience in itself is also quite important. What we already noted before COVID is, for example, with the Physio Future Lab, what we noticed is that 90% of patients actually prefer to get some kind of support by using an app for either instruction when they have visited a clinician, but also, for example, to receive their training program or receive their education in a digital shape or form, to actually make sure that they are able to actually keep track of what they would like to do and what they would like to see. And that's really where we see a big benefit of using digital health as well. So not only on the outcomes, but also on the patient experience. And that's the same thing what we notice with virtual physiotherapy. So the ability to actually treat patients with a video consultation, that over 92% of patients who were asked what they thought of virtual physiotherapy were satisfied with the experience. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth there. Next to that, what I also think is very good is to look at the practitioner side. So as a practitioner, you often see your patient inside the clinic. As a general practitioner, as a clinician, as a practitioner, it could be that the only way to actually see your patient is inside the clinic. But using forms or specific applications of digital health can actually give you additional tools to treat your patients to the best of your abilities and extend the care delivery that you can provide. So that's always why I talk about the toolbox of a practitioner, that digital health can really extend that toolbox and contribute to that. But it can also mean that you have additional options to treat patients. So for example, at the same time as a clinic owner or as a practitioner, you need to make sure that you have sufficient patients and that you see the right patients. But using digital health can also mean that you can increase the accessibility for patients to your clinic. For example, if they are restricted to specific travel options, that they can actually use tools like ours or like other specific solutions to actually gain access to the right person at the right time. And of course, with that accessibility that we talk about, the reduced carbon footprint, meaning that if you look at the global pollution that is caused due to hospital visits, clinic visits, for example, there can be a significant reduction in the carbon footprint of both hospitals and, of course, specific individual patients by actually being able to access the care provision remotely. So actually by not having to travel to your specific expert or your specific clinician. Just what I wanted to show you what that could look like is I just want to show you a short video of what it looks like. This is a practitioner here in the Netherlands. He's called Wouter, and Wouter is providing care via VisiTrack to his patients. And I just wanted to show you what that could look like.
Ik ben Wouter van Leeuwen en ik ben fysiotherapeut in Uggelen. En naast fysiotherapie ben ik gespecialiseerd in orofaciaal fysiotherapie. Mijn dagelijkse werk is met name sturen en coachen van patiënten. Patiënten komen binnen in een 1-op-1 situatie waar ik probeer een uur met ze bezig te zijn, uitleg te geven, inzicht en natuurlijk een stukje onderzoek en fysiotherapie. En daarna probeer ik het werk en de zorg met behulp van een iPad digitaal door te zetten. Via een digitaal platform, VisiTrack, waarmee ik werk, kunnen we de zorg continueren. En wat voor ons daar belangrijk aan is dat je eigenlijk bijna alle aspecten van fysiotherapie daarbij ook digitaal kan aanbieden. De patiënt zit bij ons aan tafel en we laten op de iPad de oefeningen zien die wij voor hun geselecteerd hebben en die worden doorgenomen. Goede uitleg is natuurlijk belangrijk en zij krijgen dan een mailtje met een link waarin ze kunnen naar hun eigen inlogpagina waar ze de oefeningen terug kunnen zien met herinnering om het te doen, ook het aantal herhalingen en sets. En ze kunnen ook per oefening feedback geven als ze vragen hebben over de oefening of iets anders willen weten.
Hey Wouter, goed je weer te zien.
Voor mij is VisiTrack een belangrijk onderdeel van mijn hele fysiotherapeutisch behandelen geworden. Juist om het stukje digitaal kunnen aanbieden van oefeningen, informatie en ook het stukje feedback wat we van de patiënt kunnen krijgen. Het belang van digitale zorg in mijn optiek is dat het de huidige zorg, zeker fysiotherapeutische zorg, efficiënter kan maken, doelgerichter en ook makkelijker voor een patiënt. Geen gehandels met losse papieren. En alles wordt nu in één platform geboden. Het is overzichtelijk voor de patiënt en het is handig voor de fysiotherapeut. Wat wil je nog meer?
So just to give you some insight on what that could look like in terms of the daily practice of a practitioner and a patient. Of course, we're talking here about the developments in digital healthcare over the past years and talk about the end of the beginning. And I would consider COVID, the pandemic that we are going through and are still going through, but we see slowly that's decreasing. We see that as like the end of the beginning, basically. So what I just wanted to show you here is the numbers of users that we had on our platform inside VisiTrack, but I think it's connected or it's associated with developments globally. If we look at the amount of users without going into the numbers. So on the left side, you see the development of VisiTrack and the amount of active users over the past years before COVID. So then we're talking about 2016, 2017, up to 2019. And this is what you see here. So you see a slowly but steady increase in the adoption of digital healthcare. We noticed that slowly but surely there were more possibilities. Like, for example, the article I mentioned here is that in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany, you saw an increased opportunity for practitioners to use things like telehealth and video consultations inside their care trajectories. But that's what we noticed before COVID. And then COVID happened. This is what we noticed in the usage due to COVID. And what you can see with the icon that I put there is March 2020. So that's when COVID really struck in Europe, and where you see that clinics actually had to close their doors, and that there was a very increased need for the amount of practitioners needing some kind of tool to treat patients remotely during the COVID pandemic. And that's really what we noticed as well, and where I see the big breakthrough of digital health in physiotherapy, but also in other sectors like hospital care and general practitioners treating patients. And what we also noticed during COVID and in the past 2 years is that we see more and more governments, insurance companies, and specific institutions allowing the use of teleconsultations and remote care. So that's what we've seen. We've seen that in Germany, we've seen that in Belgium, we've seen that in the UK, we've seen that in the Netherlands, we've seen that in France. That you see that slowly but surely, due to the COVID pandemic and the need for remote patient engagement, that we see that there is a big rise happening right now in the ability to do so. And we also, of course, look at ways of seeing what it specifically does. So COVID really allowed to scale up the ability to implement digital healthcare inside clinics, but it also allowed research groups and research institutions to really take a closer look at how digital health and telehealth was applied. One of the big interesting pieces is, for example, the report I noted on the right, the remote physiotherapy consultations in the Belgian primary healthcare context. And that was very interesting to see what practitioners and patients actually thought of it. So just to take an outlook on what we have seen there, just to take you a little bit with me on what we have noticed during that during the pandemic and how physiotherapists were treated. The Belgian Physiotherapy Association actually asked over 1,500 physiotherapists about their opinion on the use of telehealth inside clinics. And it was quite interesting to actually share this snippet with you. If you look at this, I think the above statement, so that telehealth is and digital health is not usable for any application, that we noted that over 90% was actually, over 90% of practitioners actually using telehealth were excited about it and thought that there was one or more applications of digital health inside their clinic, while 41% of practitioners not using telehealth actually didn't think of any specific use. And there you see that it's a little bit of afraid to get their feet wet with digital health. So you see that practitioners that haven't been using digital health can be either afraid to actually start using it or actually don't see the benefit just yet. But as soon as you see practitioners actually starting to get used to the fact that digital health can be a part of their journey, that it actually can contribute to providing care in a digital way. Of course, there are some challenges to face if we look at moving forward. So if we look at the pandemic being the big breakthrough for digital health to a certain extent, there are still some challenges we are facing on different levels. And these are the things that I think that we should look at. One is reimbursement. Second is interoperability. Third is privacy and information security. Four is quality assurance and governance. And five is government insurance and legislation. I think in general, reimbursement is a big factor. So as a practitioner, you can be very excited about the use of digital health inside your clinic. But of course, all these tools that require you to invest either time or a financial investment. And I think it is up to insurance companies, up to governments to actually make sure that the way is clear for practitioners, hospitals, and clinics to actually start applying this way of care inside their clinic. At the same time, we see an increased amount of digital health tools. Earlier this week, we were part of a specific session with a company that recently became part of Physitrack Group, where the owner actually mentioned that nowadays there are over 400,000 different applications you can use in digital health. And these are all separate applications. And if you look at ways of providing care to a proper extent, you need to make sure that those specific solutions all communicate with each other. So that's the responsibility of providers like us, like Physitrack, to actually make sure that these services all work together and integrate to a certain extent. At the same time, we need to be aware of privacy and information security. So with the rise of internet and specific privacy cases, like you've seen with Facebook, with WhatsApp, with other specific bigger issues or bigger topics, we also need to be aware of the fact that we make sure that privacy is secured and that information security is also something that is being kept on the mind of both practitioners and patients, but of course also the providers of digital health in general. And at the same time, not only making sure that information and privacy is secured, but that also the quality of a care provision tool like ours is actually provided, and that we make sure that as providers and as practitioners that the quality is high. And that's something that we need to work on. And at the same time, making sure that governments, insurance companies, and for example, physiotherapy associations make sure that the room is clear. And I think those are the pieces where we need to work on as the different stakeholders inside the digital health ecosystem. So challenges on the macro level, I think that moving forward, that we need to make sure that government, institutions, insurance companies make sure that the room is clear to use digital health and to keep using digital health also post-pandemic. That clinics and hospitals actually make sure that they pave the way and actually make sure that they have a strategy around the application of digital health. That as a practitioner, as you if you are excited about the use, that you get started with it and that you get your feet wet to make sure that you actually make your first steps, and with that know what the added benefit can be. And that as a patient, if you feel the need or if you feel that there might be an opportunity to do so, that you also discuss that with your practitioner. That brings me back to the quote that I used at the early beginning. This is a quote of Winston Churchill using in the Second World War, but I think this applies to digital healthcare in this extent, that COVID is not, that digital healthcare and the breakthrough of digital healthcare is not the end, it is just the beginning. And perhaps this is the end of the beginning. Any other specific questions? Do you have any comments? Please let me know, and thank you all for listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Frank, for the lecture about digitalization of healthcare. I believe all participants has more insight and maybe have questions to discuss, and we will save it for later for the Q&A session. So for participants, if you have any questions that tickles you, we invite you to drop this in this forum. You can put it in the chat box, or you can drop it in the Q&A link in the chat box as well, or later you may also ask directly if you want to have direct interaction with our speakers. But before that, we will continue first with the next session. The next lecture will be delivered by our second speaker, Ms. Opifia Dian, also from PhysiTrack. Now you can see the profile of Ms. Opifia Dian. She earned a diploma in physiotherapy and profession of physiotherapy in Poltekkes Surakarta. Ms. Opifia Dian also have education in English public speaking. And for the experience, Ms. Opifia Dian has almost 10-year experience as a senior physiotherapist. And other than that, Ms. Opifia Dian is the country manager and translator for the PhysiTrack PLC. And now, without further ado, I'm inviting Ms. Opifia Dian to deliver the lecture.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nabila. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I think before we begin, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Opi. I work for PhysiTrack as Business Development Managers, and also I'm a full-time physiotherapist at Brawijaya Clinic Kemang in Jakarta. So it's such a beautiful experience to share what's the challenge in telerehabilitations in Indonesia specifically, and then combining what just Frank said about what the telerehabilitations or digitalizations works in Europe. So let's have a look. Let me just share my screen. Is everybody can see my screen now? So good?
Yeah, we can see it, Miss Opifia, but actually not in full screen yet. Thank you.
Okay, now there you go. All great. Okay, so I'm here today to share you about telerehabilitation's works in Indonesia and then how VisiTrack can help you to deliver a quality healthcare to your patients. But to begin with, I'll be giving a talk about Indonesia healthcare market. Then we will discuss more about healthcare system challenge in Indonesia. And after that, I'll explain how telemedicine works, especially during the pandemic here in Indonesia. And finally, after seeing all the pros and cons about telerehabilitations, we can find the solutions. And one of it is by using tools such as VisiTrack. So let's have a look. So Indonesia is one of the largest and fastest growing internet economies in Southeast Asia. And with the tech-savvy populations and the patients' behavior changing, the country will need the digital capabilities and infrastructure to meet the new demand. So here's some of quick facts about Indonesia. Did you guys know that Indonesia is the world's 16th largest economy and rising, with 263 million populations, and then 40% of all the populations is under 35 years old. And then most of these young generations, they use apps, or at least they're familiar with apps. Indonesia is challenged with delivering health service to a large dispersed populations. As Dr. Maria mentions that we are an archipelago with more than 70,000 islands for all Indonesia. And shortage of healthcare professionals and physical and internet infrastructure and the rush of people of using digital health apps present a unique opportunity for international capabilities to come on board. Okay, but on the other hand, Indonesia is also facing with a lot of challenge, especially in the healthcare digitalizations such as distance. We need to be able to manage healthcare remotely. How? I think it's definitely, we never think about it before the pandemic, and now suddenly pandemic hit us. And with the geos, as I mentioned, we have a lot of islands in Indonesia, and then how to cover or how to deliver the even distributions of healthcare. This is also the challenge for us. But in other words, insufficiency of health workers is also one of the issues. Let's have a look on this slide first. This is the distributions hospital in Indonesia. It is clear that the distributions of hospitals also the impact on the number of medical personnel in Indonesia is uneven. Indonesia now stands at the low number of beds compared to other Asian members. As 2021, the country only possesses 0.2 hospitals bed for over 1,000 people. So it's still very low, and then it's very hard, especially we all know that during the pandemic, the Delta one last year, that it's very hard to get the hospitals and especially looking for hospital, even in a big city like here in Jakarta. Therefore, answering the trends, Indonesian hospitals are establishing their own consultation service to facilitate demand to consult with the doctors. Some of platforms that you guys might or maybe use, I also use one of the platforms during this pandemic are Hello Doctor or Good Doctors, Hello Doc, Click Doctors, and etc. Definitely, telemedicine will help the government spread the sector's range and ensure accessible services for all Indonesians. The telemedicine services will also help cater to hospitals' bed needs. As I mentioned, we do have a very low capacity of hospital compared to populations in Indonesia. But however, the regulations is needed by the government to prioritize some of things, such as securing data protections and also mitigating other health services risks. Here's the telemedicine's flow in Indonesia. maybe I'm pretty sure some of you guys that all the participants in here, maybe one or twice during this pandemic already used the telemedicine platform in Indonesia. So the patient just needs to open the apps from their smartphone to connect with the doctors. Patients can reach the doctors immediately, or they can just book the appointment for the doctor's slot first. Not only the consultations, patients also can be registering for a health test or get a COVID test, or as simple as buying of vitamins or medications. Everything is just simple and everything is on our hand. Now that we have discussed about telemedicine and the current situations in Indonesia, I would like to talk about telerehab. So actually, what is the missing things in telemedicine? So when the patients open their apps, have a consultations with the doctors, and they can get the medications they need, or they get a test that they need, what's the missing step? Anyone? The missing step is following up. It's hard to follow up what the patients do or how the medications work, because that's where the telerehabilitations do. In telerehabilitations, it's one of the, as a physiotherapy, it's our duty to be part of the rehabilitations. So as like my experience treating a patients, actually the process, it's not only finished when I see the patients. After the patients go back home, or before the distance before the next appointment, it's still possible for me to track about my patient's progress. Or as simple as we are sending a patient a home exercise program, and maybe my patient is from Bali and they want to just have a short holiday in Bali, and then suddenly they got lower back pain, and maybe they just call me out and then, can you guys help me with the back pain and everything? Then I need to send them the exercise, and I just need to make sure they do the exercise that I send, or I just want to track whether about their pain level that they send. And that's where PhysiTrack comes in. And I also would like to quote what Frank said earlier about how digitalization works in European countries, and also there's a lot of research that confirm that home exercise based on web, it's helped with the improvement of the patient's outcome. It's also make our platform or PhysiTrack, it's one of the platform that we can use during our daily practice. PhysiTrack was started back in 2012. Our head office is in London, and we do have all representatives in all around the world. PhysiTrack is using by 250,000 health practitioners to prescribe to more than 2 million new patients per year. And PhysiTrack is part of Apple Mobility Partner, and Apple help us to make sure the system is running well and the apps also user-friendly. Although we work with Apple to take a look on iOS apps, we use the system on the Android as well. And as you know that the majority of populations in Indonesia use Android. PhysiTrack is effective, scalable, and innovative. Definitely helps us during our practice because it's part of our responsibility, I will say like that, for if we have other health practitioners joining with us today, that the matters, actually it's not like how much the patients paid us or how popular we do on Instagram or on Jakarta Physiotherapy. But as simple as we just want the patients to be better soon, and should be a progress for every single day. And that's why we need tools that can accommodating all of it. And if I share more about PhysiTrack, it's all about patients' engagement. Yes, the next question will be like, it's pretty much different with here in Indonesia. For example, most of the patients that seeing the doctors or physiotherapists in Indonesia, they are more rely into their health practitioners. They will never ever, like ask after the sessions, can you give me a home exercise program, or I want to be better as soon as possible. It's very rare. We are getting there, but in a small city, they are feel more comfortable if, oh, I don't mind to getting paid as long as the doctor is still there, the physiotherapist is still there. But now we need to change the way we think, and we need to transfer these changes to the patients as well. That the patients need to be the center of all treatment. That's what we call with patients need more engagement. And this is the 4 keys of PhysiTrack, the 4 features. The first one is exercise prescription, and we will have a deep look about it. So with PhysiTrack or inside PhysiTrack, we have more than 15,000 video exercises. It helps us to choose and to make the home program more variety, because we do have 15,000 more home exercise inside PhysiTrack. And also for the patients, it's easier for them to follow the exercise at home because the video is available in Bahasa Indonesia. Let's say Miss Nabila is very popular, and Miss Nabila really likes to create her own exercise and wants the patient knows. It's also possible for you, if you already have your own videos, to upload to PhysiTrack and then share your videos to your patients. I think it's more personal, especially when the patients receive the videos from the physio or the doctors. They will be like, oh my God, the doctors is watching me now, something like that. So it makes also the patients will do the exercise even better. Again, everything inside PhysiTrack is short, clear, and simple. And the apps for the patients will be different. For the patients, we'll download Physi app, and it's available for iOS, Android, and also website. If you just want to prescribe an exercise, you can just finish to choose whatever exercise you want. Or you can also send the educational content. Here's also the missing things during the telerehabilitations, in my opinion, or the rehabilitations process in Indonesia. Because of we don't have enough time to see the patients, or let's say for physiotherapists, we have more than 16,000 physiotherapists in Indonesia, but to cover all the populations, so it's very low. So it means one physiotherapy can cover almost 16,000 people. So it means we really need another physiotherapy. We really need more physiotherapy to cover the rehabilitations. And during the sessions, sometimes patients, they are not well get more like enough informations. Maybe they just forgot, or they just maybe blown away with your face because, oh my God, my doctor is so pretty, or my doctor is so handsome. Suddenly I'm just like losing all the words I forgot to ask them before. And the quick fact is, during the sessions with the patients only absorbs about 60% of what we said. The rest of it, they just forgot, or like I said, they just blown away with our face, I don't know. So that's why it's important to share again the educational content to the patients. And then the next question, why am I supposed to do that? So here's the idea. If your patients understand about their conditions, Opi suddenly got diagnosed with a osteoarthritis on the knee because of obesity. And the doctor kept telling me like, you should do your exercise, diet, blah, 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 blah. But then forgot about it. I don't care what the doctor said because I'm not well educated yet about what happened to me. If we send more about the content, the educational content to patients, it helps the patients to understand more about their conditions, and the patient will be more engaged during the rehabilitations. At the end, the result will be the better outcomes. So here's another tips that we can use. So I hope when you guys back to the clinic or back to the hospital tomorrow, this is something like a small change that you guys can try. And then after sending all the contents, the exercise, the patient's educations, what comes next? We need to make sure the patients open it, or we need to make sure the patients do it at home. That's why inside VisiTrack, we're able to track the patient's progress. Not only the progress, we can track the patient adherence, the prompt scores, even until the heart rate maximum if we want to prescribe an exercise based on the cardio. So it's easy and no more situations, because I'm always experiencing this all the time during the practice. If I ask to my patients, did you do the exercise? And then they will be like, of course. Okay, show me this stretching. And then we'll be like, which one? So it's pretty much funny when the patients want to lie to us. And then now the conversations will be different. We are no longer asking the questions, but I will just jump into the questions. Look, from VisiTrack, I know that you are not doing your exercise. So it means I'm watching you all the time. So do your exercise right away. So it's like CCTV all the time. It's not we want to push the patient, but with the right communications, we just want the patient to get better and patients to be able to manage their own conditions. It will be a good things that will happen to them. So again, it's a small change. I know it's different for what we always do in here in Indonesia, but hey, according to what Frank said, it works in European. Now it's time for here in Indonesia to make a change a little bit and then do better. I know we can. And also, part of the telerehabilitation platform, we can use telehealth to have a video consultations with the patients. And if you read about the regulations in Indonesia, that we cannot just use any platform that contains of video features to do the consultations with the patients. One of it, because we need to protect the security data. Let's say, because it's also happened in my community once in a while before we all knows what the regulations is. During the session, sometimes the patient just call us through WhatsApp call or video call through WhatsApp. We just need to make sure that this platform is contains or make sure that they protect the data for the patients. In VisiTrack, we already certificate with the data security and data protections. And it's all integrated in one app. So you don't have to download anything, just plug and play, and then you can do streaming exercise with the patients, just like the video that Frank mentions and showed last time, that we're able to monitor what the patients do, whether they do the exercise right or not. And also for the practitioner side, it's shown the goniometer as well. That's the tools to measure the range of movement for each joint. Definitely, it's easy if I want to track my patients and then they are not in Indonesia, but I want to know the degree of the shoulder joint, the problem that he got before. It's possible for us with these features. So this is the patient's journey with VisiTrack, and then how the telerehabilitation works with VisiTrack. As I mentioned, with all the features inside VisiTrack, I will divide it all the journey into 3 sections. The first is the pre-appointment. On the pre-appointment, when the patients connect to us and they can fill the form or the clinical survey before we see them, it helps us to determine what their conditions. And during the appointment, we can discuss what we found, and also we can do the streaming exercise with VisiTrack and also educate the patients. After we seeing everything, we do the assessment, objective and subjective, and then we know what happened with the patients, and it's time for us to prescribe an exercise. Or as simple as I want to send some of questionnaire as well to my patients, and also another content educations. And the post-appointment, as the part of the rehabilitations, the post-appointment is better because we need to follow up about the patient's condition. We can ask the patients to come to our clinic directly, or we can do the telehealth and the video consultations inside VisiTrack. Okay, I think this brings me to the end of my presentations today about the rehabilitations in Indonesia, also the latest technology that we can use to prescribe an exercise to the patients. And one of the tools that we can use is by using PhysiTrack. If you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Opifia, for the interesting discussion about telehealth in Indonesia. And yeah, actually now I see some questions in the Q&A link. So for the other participants, if you have anything to share, anything to ask, you can put it there, but we will discuss it later. Now we will move to the next goal for goal number 4 about the quality education with our next speaker, Associate Professor Nidal Jabari. Okay, so Associate Professor Nidal Jabari is from Palestine Technical University. His educational background, he got the Bachelor of Computer Science, of Computer and Information Systems, and he got the PhD of Electrical Technique in Multimedia and Intelligent Network. For his experience, Professor Nidal is the head of planning and development department in Palestine Technical University, and now is the administrative and financial manager in Palestine Technical University. And for the lecture, he will share about the maintaining and continuing focus on engineering skills throughout the life cycle of engineering study at universities. So for our engineering students, please be ready to get more knowledge from Professor Nidal. Now I'm inviting Professor Nidal to deliver the lecture.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm happy to see you again. Actually, let me share my presentation. Just a minute, please. Desktop, ATS. Can you see my presentation, please?
We still seeing your Windows, Mr. Nidal. So maybe you can click the share screen button and choose the PPT.
I don't know. There's. I shared my screen. It's not. You can't see my. Okay. What happened? This.
Have you opened the PowerPoint, Professor?
Yeah. I have already opened the PowerPoint. Is it? You can't see it.
We still cannot see it. So maybe you can click the share screen button in the Zoom apps.
I clicked the share. Is it okay now?
Not yet, Professor.
Strange. Again.
Or Prof. Nidal Jabari, do you want us to assist you to operate your presentation?
Just a minute, please. I shared my my Windows platform, but I don't know what happened for my computer. Let me start again. Stop share. Share. Now is it okay?
We still haven't seen it actually.
Right. Stop share.
Okay, we can see it now, Professor.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you again, Salamat Sore, for you all. As you mentioned at the beginning of the session, I was graduated in Technique Electro from ATS, 2013. Actually, today I will talk in comprehensive methodologies in education. I will be far away from what have said my colleagues in health and healthcare. I will go to education because it's my specialization and I concentrate my researches in this field. Let me see at the beginning detail of my biodata. I'm Nidal Jabari, Doctor of Technique Electro, Associate Professor BTUK, Director of Administrative and Financial Affairs at BTUK, member of Hebron City Municipality Board, and head of Palestine Technical University. This is my photo during graduation 2013. Here you can see Professor Muhammad Nuh. He was the minister of this photo at ATS. Do you see this photo? Do you know this minister?
Excuse me, Professor, but your slide is not moving. So, yeah.
My presentation does not flow.
Okay, now we can see it, but maybe if you could present it in full screen mode.
This is full screen. Strange. Does that move?
Yeah, we're seeing your PowerPoint in the biodata.
Yeah, but it seems still processing for full slide.
I don't know what happened for this computer. Seems there is. I don't know. I'm sorry, seems there's a problem in my Zoom. Should be more strange.
Professor, maybe if you don't mind, we actually can operate the PowerPoint and you can direct us from there, if you don't mind.
Okay, you can open my PowerPoint from your side.
Okay, sure, Professor.
Okay. Yes, here, as you can, this is my brief biodata about my research and my work. As I said at the beginning, I'm specialized in smart learning and technical and vocational education. I have experience of 26 years within this field. So this is my biodata. Please go on. As you can see here, you can see my graduation 2013 with Professor Muhammad Nuh. This photo was taken in ATS itself. This photo 10 years ago. This is, you can see here some of my activities in Indonesia. You can find me with Director of Brawijaya, UMM, UNISMA, and other universities in Indonesia. I have wide activities in Indonesia. Go on, please. Well, actually, now I'll start with my presentation. My researches is divided into two tracks. The main track is which is called smart learning. Smart learning is a learning based on artificial intelligence. The second track is technical and vocational education. Engineering falls in the field of technical and vocational engineering. And for this field, I designed and developed a methodology called normative methodology for technical and vocational education. In order to understand what I will say in this presentation, we need to talk about some definitions here about TVET, technical and vocational education and training. Competency is a standardized requirements for an individual to properly perform specific job. CPET is competency-based learning, an approach to teaching and learning more, often used in learning concrete skills than abstract learning. Curricula is broadly defined as the totality of student experiences that occur in the educational process. Complex task is a task which is compounded by many different activities. Educational or learning attitude is in which students work as groups in a positive reciprocal interaction in which each individual feels responsible for learning and learning for others in order to achieve common goals. All these components, we will rely on these components in order to build our normative methodology in technical and vocational education and designing and development of the curricula of technical education. Please, next slide. Again. Now, why we need to develop standard methodology or method for development of curricula for TVET? Why we don't follow the same methodology for developing curricula for a traditional education? We have a wide diversity between traditional education and technical and vocational education, especially that the characteristics of the graduated student from the technical education should match more with the needs of the labor market. So why we need these methodologies? We can see the points. Please go on. Many clicks together, many clicks. There are much diversity in needs, assessment, and different forms of curriculum. Next, please. Training gears toward vocational training institutions. This is the future of the market within the years. Lack of opportunities for the personal development of learners. Limited link to labor market needs. Lack of employment opportunities. Notorious reputation for technical and vocational education and training, and lack of a unified evaluation system. These items or these points which enforce us to make a standard methodology for development of TVET curricula and not leave the curricula as traditional education. The most two important points is here, limited link to a labor market needs. This is a very important factor in the educational and technical education. And the last one is the lack of unified evaluation system. In the world, we cannot find a common evaluation system for technical and vocational education. Within this methodology, we can find this evaluation system. Next slide, please. Here, we can find our methodology from 1 to 8. In order to development a curricula for technical or vocational education, you have go through these 8 points from 1 to 8. First point is you have to start with a new idea. The new idea either revision of an existing program within a university or a college or technical college, or you can decide if you want to develop a new program within this within the university. Either you decide to develop a new program or review, you have to start from this point. So you will go to the second point, determine or modify the required complex tasks and competencies in case of review. If you know that in technical and vocational education, this type of education based on competencies and complex tasks. If you have already an old program and you have to review this program, you have to review all the complex tasks and competencies with this program. You will go to the third step, design a professional description referring to A, POC, and NQF. All of these are standard evaluations for technical educations in the world. You will go to the fourth step, development curricula, modules, and educational attitudes. Fifth is ministerial decision and accreditation, a process from the ministries and the local authorities and international authorities related to this type of education. Sixth step is program implementation. 7, review and prepare the final test. And 8, evaluation process. This process is spiral, is mixed between spiral and waterfall process. So you will repeat the same process several times until you arrive the required competencies and attitudes of the program, and the market will give you the okay about this program and you can apply it directly. Next slide, please. Here we can find some observations about the methodology to develop technical and vocational education. All types of competency-based training and education CPET are the labor market requirements. This is the most important point in technical and vocational education. I know very well that ATS is a technical university, is not a traditional university, does not offer programs like history or geography or something like that. ATS offers the programs in technical and vocational field. So if ATS or other technical universities want to reach a successful achievement in the education, technical education, they should concentrate in the first point, that all the requirements of the should be extracted from the labor market, not from the teachers inside the university. So in technical and vocational education, the source of the requirements is the labor market itself, not the teacher or the administrative staff at the university itself. This is the step 1. Next step, the complex task approach through expert staff workshop, identify the key tasks of a profession and the competencies required to successful master. Okay, when the university of the technical college gathers the requirements from the labor market, they should make 5 to 10 experts and make a workshop to discuss these requirements. And we will go to step 3. Within this workshop, they will determine the complex tasks and the competences inside these complex tasks. Step 4, CPET uses training and teaching tools that follow the work process of the professional. CPET competency-based education and the training curricula that have implemented the development standards are adopted and implemented. And step 7, competency-based training and education requires an appropriate assessment of the application of competencies in the core of tasks, the profession. And step number 8, competency-based training and education curricula are regularly assessed to ensure that they are consistent with labor market needs and standards. Here I will clarify something. This normative methodology to development the technical programs are divided into two parts. First part is this presentation, which I'm presenting now, but there's another part which is the training and the practical side of this curricular development. In order to understand very well the methodology, we should practice this methodology inside at ETS itself. I will be from 23rd of June until 20th of July. I will be in Indonesia. I will stay 1 month there. I will visit ETS and we will practice the workshop there in order to understand well the methodology. Next, please. The objective of TVET2 is to develop competent person, competent citizen, and efficient worker. As you see here in the photos, we can find what is the meaning of technical education or vocational education. We need to have expert graduated from our university or from our college in order to work directly in the labor market and have the sufficient competencies which enable him to be a competent person and competent citizen and efficient worker. Next, please. Competency here, if you don't understand what the meaning of competency, some of them. Competency is the ability and willingness to plan, implement, and evaluate the work independently with an individual, group, and practical attitudes and according to the standards and norms defined by civil society. This is competency. Next, please. Next slide. Where to look for competencies, how to determine your competencies which you should embed in the curricula of the technical education. Click again. In fact, not in the textbooks. This is the most important point. Technical education cannot be found in textbooks. Technical education can be only found in the labor market from the field itself. Please, next. What is required? Methodology for identifying and describing competencies in the workplace expert workshop workers. This is the most important factor in order to develop this curricula is the workshop for workers, workshop from the experts of the market in order to determine the competencies required for any job or any program to produce an expert. Next, please. You are expert worker, as you see in the photo. The expert is not the teacher. The expert is the worker himself, who is in the market, and he will be the main source of the information which we need to develop any curriculum for vocational education. Next, please. The tool used to make this knowledge public: expert staff workshops. Tasks and competencies provides full and comprehensive description of the profession. Next, please. You can describe your work, quality, and context more accurately and more conveniently than outsiders. I mean about the worker in the market, or the expert can explain more about the competencies more than others. He also understands the requirements of the customers related to products and services, and he also aware of the needs of the professional and the sector. Expert staff workshops is our practical effort, which will be within ETS in June or July, next June or July, if we have time, or if you have time to practice this workshop. Look here, we have some photos. We need in order to conduct this workshop at ATS next June or July, we need experts, staff ranging from 6 to 15 persons. Next, please. We need 1 to 2 facilitators for this workshop. These facilitators should be trained in the methodology of the education, conducting expert workshops and supporting the participants in order to achieve the objective of the workshop. Not just 2 facilitators or 1 or 2, but they should be trained about this methodology. Next, please. The experts' work is identifying 8 to 16 of the complex tasks of the profession job by a job and competencies required to accomplish these complex tasks. So the workshop the workshop, which is the first step in order to design and develop any curricula for technical program. You need 6 to 15 experts from the labor market and 1 to 2 facilitators. The experts will provide us with complex tasks and competencies within these complex tasks. Next. As a practical solution and in order to finalize the complex tasks and competencies and also attitudes required for this program within the workshop, as you see here, a workshop which we have conducted maybe 1 or 2 years ago to development a new program. Here at the board, we should make a process of clustering of complex tasks and competencies inside these tasks. If we practice this workshop at ATS next June or July, you will understand what the meaning of clustering, how you extract the complex tasks and competencies required for this program. Next, please. Definition of competences. We have already defined competences. We have 4 types of competences. First one is professional. In order to design and development the curricula, we have to concentrate on not just educational competencies, but also we have other types of competences required for our student at the university, technical university. These competences are divided into 4 types. First one is the professionalism. Professional competencies means the ability and desire of learner to acquire and use knowledge and technical skills to solve the problems. Next one, please. The competences, the other type of competences are personal competence. The personal competence, the ability and desire of individuals to be self-reliant and consistent with moral values. Third, social competencies, ability to develop positive social relationships based on social responsibility and social solidarity. Fourth, methodological competence, having the necessary means and methods at personal disposal and using them to evaluate and solve problems and tasks. Okay, these 4 tracks of competences should be extracted from experts within the expert workshop in order to embed these competences within the program, the new program, the technical program. Next, please. This is an example about complex tasks in a program. This is for expert in kitchen, who cook. First complex task is preparing and making sauces and soups. Second complex task is prepare and serve cold and hot and so on. This is an example about complex tasks and modules. Please next. Here we extended our curricula with complex tasks and competences within each task. Professional competences, you can't find them. Personal competences, you can't find them. Social competence, you can't find them. Methodological competence, you can find them. This is an example about the 4 competences we need them within a technical program. Next, please. The relationship between work and learning. Step 1, identify complex tasks and competences related to the profession. This is complex tasks, we need them within a profession. Next, step 2, develop professional descriptions and design modules based on complex tasks and competences curricula. Next, please. Complex tasks are mapping to modules and modules mapping to, click please, to attitudes. This is the relationship between complex tasks, modules, and attitudes in the technical education. Next, please. Next. Here we can talk about attitudes. Attitudes competency is achieved through successful control of problems, tasks, or attitudes. Next. Competency-based learning needs as an effective and self-directed learning approach, learner-centered. Design teachers, trainers, such as learning arrangements, they support and supervise the learning process. Next. Learning attitudes is a well-proven methodology aimed at facilitating meaningful, action-based, and self-reliant learning within teams. This is the attitude. Next. General characteristics of learning attitudes should be flexible. Next. Next, please, all the items. Again. Okay, all these characteristics are related to the attitude. We should apply them within when we are extract the attitudes required for a profession. You can find or provide flexibility related to the profession, companies, tasks and problem, complete work, allow education methodologies, and so on. Next. Okay, this slide embedded in the last one. Next, please. In this slide, you can find a summarize of all the process you need to design and develop of technical program within a university. And this is the life cycle and learning based on the full work. You can, if you need. Next, please. Developing teamwork. Look, here is a very important point. The attitudes should be teamwork, not just by a teacher. Not one teacher, should be a teamwork. And within the process is divided into 4 steps: develop, organized, run out, and evaluation, in order to develop the learning attitudes. Next, please. This is an example. We don't need to read all, but this is an example of attitude, module 1. Here you can find the description of the attitude, and below you can find methodology competency, social competency, personal competency, professional competency related to this attitude. When you apply one attitude, you should here put the 4 competences will be extracted, will get benefit from this attitude. Next, please. Another example also. This is all examples you can review when you have time. At the end of the process, you have to evaluate and testing process for TVET, a presentation of step 7 of the standard process manual for the development of TVET curricula, the evaluation process. Next. Next, please. Again, you have many steps to evaluate. I will not take time. Also, here to summarize the process here, as you started your work in order to extract complex tasks and competencies by expert workshop. Also, at the end of the process, you should make another workshop and test, make evaluation of the competencies and tasks also with expert workshop. Next, please. This is the process of evaluation, standard curricula, professional, and this is evaluation and test structure. So many processes should be conducted here in order to evaluate your program. Next. Thank you. To summarize my presentation, we started with failure in my Zoom. I'm so sorry about that. But to summarize my work is divided into 2 tracks: smart learning and technical vocational education. Today, I started talking about technical and vocational development of curricula. Next presentation will be about engineering, because engineering is one of the technical education. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, I will be in Indonesia for 1 month. Next month, I will be there in Yogyakarta University, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta for an activity. This methodology is a wide methodology. Divided into two parts. One is the presentation, but the most important is the practical effort. The practical effort, we need to make 2 workshops at ETS itself. We can make this in June or July if you like to apply this methodology and design and development in new technical programs. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Professor Nidal, for elaborating about engineering skills and the life cycle of engineering study today. Okay, so to all participants, we have discussed about 2 SDG goals, that is good health and well-being, and also quality education. If you have any question, you can drop it in the Q&A link that we share in the chat box. And meanwhile, we already received some questions for the Q&A session that we will have now. So allow me to read the first question that is directed to Miss Opifia about telerehabilitation. Okay, so the question is from Aulia Harumi from ITS Management Technology. The question is related to misdiagnosis and law, actually. So, Ms. Opifia, in Indonesia, there has no legitimate law for preventing or overcoming the misdiagnosis. We had law number 21 of 2004, but in that law, there are no rules regarding the practice of medicine through telemedicine. Is there any procedure and probably another law to prevent misdiagnosis to be happened in telemedicine?
Thank you, Miss Nabila, for the questions. And thank you so much. The question is very nice. And in my opinion, of course, with the rehabilitations, there's some of challenge. And then one of it is lack of diagnose, because we won't be able to test the patients directly. That's the first. It means lack of the hands-on things, because like a physiotherapy, for example, it's very hard for physiotherapy to ask the patients to do the specific tests, or some of doctors and they need to test with the specific test. It's pretty much hard. And it's definitely related with the result that we can get, because since we cannot grab more data, it means the presentations of misdiagnosed will be higher. And that's the challenge. And it's also related, there's some of other regulations in Indonesia, but most of it's only talking about the platform, that's number one, the data security, as far as I know, and I can share with the ITS as well after this, and then can help me to pass to the participants. The regulations that I know, one of it regarding the security data is the server, that it's important to use the platform that the server stay in Indonesia. But unfortunately, there's no, or still less of the regulations that controlling what's the meaning of what will be happen if we have like a misdiagnosed. That's number one. But I think one of the things that we can do to prevent that is to be able or to prepare sort of like informed consent. Informed consent is a very important thing to pass to the patients before they do or before they see us, can be online or even offline. And if I saw one of doctors, I believe she's already lived, she can confirm what I just said, that in Indonesia, that's also the missing things. And if we put the informed consent to the patients before, if things happen, it also can protect us and also can protect the patients. So I hope by this, or if ITS maybe have some of link to the government that we can have more discussions about regulation to the rehabilitations, please let me know, and then I'll be happy to join during the discussions for sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Opifia, for the answer. So that is the answer about misdiagnosis, but particularly from a physiotherapist point of view, but there might be more description on the law point of view. So that's the answer from Ms. Opifia. So we have another question from Naufal Akbari Adam from Biomedical Engineering ITS. The question is, Indonesia is a diverse country and the population is not equally spread. And the question is about how to equalize the number or adjust it with the spread of population with the telerehabilitation in Indonesia. So as mentioned by Ms. Opifia, with the statistics of the data of the spread of hospitals in Indonesia, about 50% is in Java, but also the population is Java is like 50% of the country. So do you think is this ideal or not? Maybe Ms. Opifia or Mr. Frank can answer this question.
Okay, maybe I can answer it first. Based on the current situations in Indonesia, it's definitely not enough and not ideal. And there's also another issue that with health worker that only focusing in Java area, but we cannot forget, and inside Java Island, we do have a lot of populations too, like the majority population stay in Java Island. And I feel like this is already, the program is already started since last year, that the Ministers of Technology and Communications in Indonesia, they pretty much support about the internet connections through all over the island, especially in a small island in Indonesia as well. If I can share a little bit about VisiTrack, regarding VisiTrack, that they can help to grab more populations to get, like a better healthcare. I have one customer in one hospital in Nusa Tenggara Timur, and then we had a training couple times before they're ready to do the telerehabilitation, telemedicine inside that hospital. And surprisingly, I thought at the beginning, I'm pretty much underestimating that a small island will be able to use this kind of technology. But I was wrong. They are like 100% accomplished, and they're now like a pro. They said with digitalizations, it helps them to grab more patients, and also it helps them to collect more data, because we are a system. With telerehabilitations, if we use an apps, it's a system. Everything will stay on that, the data will stay, and it helps us to calculate the patients. It helps us to know what kind of conditions mostly the patients have, so we can deliver the better quality care. And I think nowadays with the internet, I know the internet, it's not that good in Indonesia, right? Miss Nabila, it's always like up and down, especially it's raining. Suddenly the internet will out. But with the internet spread among the populations, it's enough. It's getting there. Even now we are almost 5G. Even only certain phone will be able to use 5G, but we're getting there. It's slowly but surely, but I can tell digitalizations in health sectors, it's something that we can see now, and it's a future of us, right? I'm pretty sure nowadays it's a lot of platform coming, and then now even not only in digital, even now if you want to have a lunch, we just need to open our phone and then order from these apps. And then this food will deliver to our house, as simple as that. It's also happened in every city. So I think that's the questions, and that's my comments. Frank, do you want to put a comment or something about how everything is not even in Indonesia, especially the population and health workers?
Well, I think in general, if you look at the spread of telehealth in itself, I think that there are, as you mentioned, that it's often underestimated how many people are proficient at using it, both from a practitioner perspective and a patient perspective. And that is something that has to do with the practitioner. So the practitioner should be able, if you look at research, then you see that patients overall, between an age range of 20 and 90 are able to actually, when they're able to use a smartphone, they're able to use telehealth to a certain extent too. And that's really something that practitioners should keep in mind when trying to implement digital health, also with people that are remote, to do more with that. So I think there's a role for practitioners to make sure that they don't underestimate the proficiency of patients. I think that's the basic ability. And if a patient has access to internet, as you mentioned, Opie, and is proficient with a smartphone or with a computer, then they should also be able to actually use telehealth. That's basically the gist of what I have learned over the past years.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Opifia and Mr. Frank, for the answer. Now I have more questions for the VisiTrack. Okay, so the question is from Nuran Abdad from Indonesia. So the question is how to make the patients more aware of the needs of using apps during the treatment. So maybe Ms. Opifia or Mr. Frank can share about the strategies from VisiTrack to spread the awareness, especially in Indonesia, maybe?
Okay, sure. Actually, I know the participant who asked these questions, and she's been very interested in digitalizations as part of her practice. And if I'm not mistaken, she's also a psychologist in Jakarta. And speaking about how we can put the patients more aware about digitalizations. As Frank said, it's come back to the physiotherapists or the practitioners themselves. Because no matter what we say, if we told the patients to come to see us 3 times in a week or every single day, they will do it. And I think that's a good start because it means the patients listen to us. And again, if the patients listen to us, it's time for us to change ourselves a little bit. It's time for us to open our mind a little bit, to open all the knowledge, the new knowledge about digitalizations at the first. So we will be able to tell the patients what the benefit based on the research. I think it's good to put the highlights that everything we say to the patients need to be based on the evidence base or the latest journal. And then after that, I'm pretty sure the patients will follow. And then, but keep in mind, these telerehabilitations or telehealth or telemedicines, it's not for every patient. There are some rules that we need to aware before we do the telerehabilitations to the patients. I think, Frank, we can help me to explain more about what things or what's the points that we need to aware to do the telerehabilitations to the patients.
I think there's one article that really sums it up too. So there's one article on our webpage that's this specific research project that was performed, and that specifically addresses that. So that's what we see as well. As OP mentions, we have thousands of users, thousands of practitioners using Physitrack to prescribe an app to their patients. And then the importance for us as well is to make sure that those patients actually do the exercises the way that the practitioner intended the use to be. But that's what we see as well, is that the role of a practitioner and of a doctor and a clinician is really big when it comes to actually making sure that the patient is motivated to actually use this. And so we see that the less importance or the less guidance a practitioner gives to a patient, the less motivated the patient is to actually start using this inside their daily life. So that's what we've noticed in this specific article as well. I invite you to actually have a look into that if you're interested in it, to look at our webpage and actually scroll down and go to clinical studies, because this specific researcher actually showed that if you educate a patient correctly, you can get to an adherence of like 100%, that a patient actually logs in every single day to actually do the exercises, look at their instruction, and actually engage with the practitioner. And that there is a very big important role for the practitioner in this process. So yeah, that's basically the role of the practitioner is very big in making sure a patient is motivated to use this.
Okay, so that is the answer from Physitrack, some strategies to spread the awareness of using telerehab apps. And next question also for the Physitrack teams.
Well, that's a lot of questions. Thank you to all the participants. It means you guys are listening to us.
Yeah, it seems they're interested in this topic very much. So the next question is actually from our international students at ITS. She is Mariam Asgari from Information System Department. The question is, does Physitrack or other medical app in Europe or in Indonesia face any fake medical applications and fake patients? If so, how did you react, especially with the fake apps? Okay, so the question is about, as usually in digitalization apps, there are fake patients and also fake applications. So yeah, how do Physitrack react to this kind of case?
So I think in general, if you look in Europe, in most countries, it's mandatory for patients to identify themselves and authenticate themselves in EMR systems. So that's like a third system in which practitioners keep track of a patient file. And that's where they have to authenticate that patient is actually the person who they think or who they say that they are. So that's not really inside Physitrack right now. We are working on a bigger project to actually be that you're able to identify yourself using government specific solutions. So for example, like digital authentication layers to do more with that. Right now, PhysiTrack and the EMR together collaborate to actually make sure that the authentication of the patient that is actually there is actually the patient that is saying that they are. So I think that's what we see over there. If you look at fake apps, we don't necessarily see a lot of that right now in terms of like fake apps, but I think we do have to be aware of that it might happen. We don't have a lot of experience with that so far. We didn't hear a lot of practitioners actually stating it, but it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, that's also I agree that it's hard to identify whether it's a true patient or not, especially in Indonesia. Not every hospital or clinic using EMR. That's also things that we need to aware with. But like with PhysiTrack, it's the patients won't be able to access their program unless they get the link from the practitioners. It means they need to make a confirmations to the patient first, ask the practitioner to create the program based on their conditions, and the practitioner will send the link. And the patients just click the link and put the year of birth, and then they can access the program. And also the program will limit it. The practitioner will set like how many days or how many weeks of the patients can be able to take a look on their program. If the link is expired, the patients need to call the practitioner again to get a new link or to get a new program. So I think that's one of the security from PhysiTrack that we use, the technology that we use to prevent this kind of things. And also, again, before the patients access the program, they need to click on the informed consent as well. So that informed consent in Indonesia, I know that we are very lazy to read everything. Yeah, right, Miss Nabila, I'm seeing you smiling. So mostly, right? So before you click, I agree, make sure you read all the informations inside because it's the informed consent. So I think that's the comment for me. But thank you so much for the questions. That's very good.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Opifia and Mr. Frank. So yeah, there's already a system to avoid the fake patients and also some policy. And like Ms. Opifia also share about informed consent. So yeah, that's are some strategy to avoid fake patients. And okay, now we're moving to next question to Professor Nidal Jabari. Hello, Professor Nidal.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, we have a question from our audience. So the question is, would you like to share about the breakthrough on the practice of technology and vocational education in your university, especially during the pandemic? Was there any change on the curriculum and approach, and what is prioritized?
The question again, please. Would you the question again?
Okay, Professor Nidal. So the question is especially the practice of technology and vocational education in your university, especially during the pandemic. So maybe you could share some breakthrough for the practices of technology and vocational education, and if there is any change on the curriculum and also the approach during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, actually, most of our new programs at the university are designed and development using this methodology. Especially, there is a rule in the Ministry of Education, of Higher Education in Palestine, that any new program should be built based on this methodology. So now we have around more than 10 programs, especially in Faculty of Professionals, yeah, Faculty of Professionals Sciences. More than the programs was built on this methodology. If you want me to share with you these programs, I can see you. If you ask about the progress in these programs and if we have more achievement and more successful results in this, the new development of the program, yes, we have, and I can show you by my examples. Regarding the practice, I offered my that I will be in Indonesia next month, and I can practice with you inside ATS the methodology itself.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you, Professor Nidal.
Because this methodology cannot be understood very well if you don't practice it inside, you know, because many activities, and you have to bring experts, and you have to discuss and extract competences, complex tasks, attitudes, and finally make clustering and evaluation of the program. So we should practice by ourselves.
Yeah, sure. So we need direct practice on the math subjects.
Yeah. Real situation, yeah.
Okay, thank you for the answer, Professor Nidal.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so actually that is the last question from the audience. We already share more about telerehabilitation and also about the life cycle of engineering study with our speakers today. So thank you very much to Mr. Frank, Ms. Opifia, and Professor Nidal for the excellent lecture. To all participants, please give a big round of applause to our speaker by using the Zoom reaction feature below. Okay, thank you very much. And also, I would like to remind our participants that you need the TWIL, or that's what I learned submission. So the first assignment will be submitted by May the 20th, 2022. And the last TWIL submission should be submitted by May 31st, 2022. And the link will be shared by our committee in the Zoom chat box. So you will need to submit these assignments to earn the credit transfer for this GLS on SDGs. Okay, so now we would like to present a certificate awarding to our speakers today. Okay, so the first one, the certificate for Mr. Frank Van Zoon. Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Frank.
You're welcome, and thank you for the invitation and everyone for attending and the great questions.
Yeah, sure. And the next, the certificate presented to Miss Opifia Dian. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Opifia and Mr. Frank from VisiTrack. And last but not least, of course, the certificate to Professor Nidal Jabari. Okay, once again, thank you very much to all of our speakers today for sharing your valuable insight with us. I believe everyone has got more knowledge about telerehabilitation, about the challenge, and also the strategies to spread the awareness of telerehabilitation, especially in Indonesia. And also some materials from Professor Nidal about engineering study and the life cycle, and also the importance of learning directly from the labor market, and also for having expert staff workshop for the curriculum development. Okay, so I believe that we all agree that these topics are crucial and everyone needs to be aware so we can support sustainable development in the global community. So once again, thank you very much to our speakers. And now, before we end the session today, I would like to invite all participants as well as our honorable speaker to take a group photo. So I would like to request all participants to open your camera. Okay, so please kindly turn on your camera and you can get yourself ready. We have several slides. So I will count 1, 2, 3, and we will capture the photo. Okay, so we will start taking the photo for the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the next slide, please keep smiling. 1, 2, 3. Okay, for the last slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much once again to all speakers and also all audience for the interactive discussion today. And I would like to remind again for the participants to fill in the feedback form that listed in the Zoom chat room. And also we will share about more interesting topics for the GLS on SDG that we will discuss for next week. So for the next week, we will continue our discussion about quality of education and also SDG number 16 about peace, justice, and strong institutions. Okay, you can mark your calendar again and join our next session for the GLS on SDGs. So once again, thank you very much to our honorable speakers and all participants for the attention. We hope to see you again in our next agenda. And don't forget to follow our social media at ITS International Office and our Facebook page to keep updated to our programs. Okay, thank you again very much and see you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Frank, Ibu Opi, and Prof. Nidal. See you.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day. We are going to talk and continue the cooperation. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next month, inshallah.
Bye.